The night air bit sharply at Emily's skin as she pulled her thin jacket tighter around her frail frame. She sat hunched on the cracked wooden bench of the bus stop. The kind that looked like it hadn't been painted in years. A flickering streetlight above buzzed, its uneven glow casting her shadow long and distorted against the pavement. It was late. Too late for anyone decent to still be waiting for a bus. The city buses came less frequently at this hour, and the ones that did pass were nearly empty, their windows fogged from the warmth inside. Emily had stopped trying to read the schedules a long time ago. They didn't matter much when you didn't have anywhere to go. She rubbed her numb fingers together, and looked down at the small canvas bag by her feet. Inside were all the belongings she had left, an extra pair of socks, a battered journal she hadn't written in for months, and a photo tucked into a book she hadn't dared to open lately. Her stomach growled. But she ignored it. Hunger was a companion she'd grown used to. She was about to lower her head and shut her eyes, just for a moment of escape, when she heard the faint sound of wheels scraping across the pavement. Slowly lifting her gaze, she noticed a little girl, no older than 6, dragging a small pink suitcase behind her. The wheels squeaked in protest as she tugged it over the uneven sidewalk toward the bus stop. Emily blinked, convinced for a moment she was imagining things. Children weren't supposed to be here. Especially not at this hour, especially not alone. But the girl came closer, her small face lit by the flickering light. Revealing wide brown eyes and cheeks reddened by the cold, she wore a puffy jacket, zipped up unevenly, and mismatched mittens that looked far too big for her hands. The girl didn't seem afraid. Instead, she walked right up to the bench and plopped down a few feet away from Emily, setting her suitcase carefully between them, as though marking her territory. Emily couldn't help but stare. "What are you doing out here?" she finally asked, her voice hoarse from disuse. The little girl glanced at her, then unwrapped something in her mittened hands. A chocolate bar, half eaten. Without hesitation, she broke off a small piece and held it out toward Emily. "You look hungry," the girl said simply. Emily froze. For a moment, she forgot how to breathe. The kindness of strangers was rare enough. But the kindness of a child was something she couldn't remember ever experiencing. Slowly, almost reverently, she took the piece and held it between her fingers. "Thank you," she whispered, her throat tight. The girl smiled, swinging her legs back and forth off the bench. "My name's Lily," she said brightly. As though they weren't two strangers in the middle of a deserted night. "Emily," she replied softly, nibbling at the chocolate. The sweetness was sharp on her tongue, almost painful after so many days of bland scraps. She swallowed and felt warmth spread through her chest, not just from the food but from the gesture itself. For a few moments, silence stretched between them. Emily studied the girl from the corner of her eye. She looked clean enough, cared for in some way, but the small suitcase tugged at Emily's curiosity. Children didn't just wander around with luggage, unless they were going somewhere. Or running from something. "Are you waiting for someone?" Emily asked gently. Lily hugged her arms around her shoulder and shrugged, her little shoulders rising and falling beneath the puffy jacket. "Maybe," she said vaguely. Then looked up at Emily with a seriousness that didn't belong to a child her age. "What about you? Where are you going?" The question caught Emily off guard. She let out a humorless laugh and shook her head. "Nowhere," she admitted. "I don't really have a place to go." Lily tilted her head, studying her as though trying to solve a puzzle. Then she scooted just a little closer on the bench, dragging her suitcase with her. "That's okay," she said softly. "Me neither." The words hung in the cold air, heavier than the silence that followed. Emily turned to look at her fully then. Really seeing her for the first time. The girl's eyes were tired, older than they should have been, and yet filled with a stubborn kind of hope. Somewhere in the distance, a bus groaned to a stop and then rumbled away again, but neither of them moved. The night stretched on, the two of them sitting side by side like two lost souls who had accidentally found each other. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, Emily didn't feel completely invisible. The minutes ticked by in silence, broken only by the occasional whoosh of cars speeding past the empty street. The bus stop felt like a tiny island in the middle of nowhere, just two souls clinging to each other's presence against the vast loneliness of the night. Emily rubbed her palms together, blowing warm breath into her cupped hands. Out of the corner of her eye, she could see Lily watching her intently, like a child studying a painting she couldn't quite understand. Finally, Emily asked the question that had been gnawing at her since the little girl arrived. "So where are your parents, Lily?" The words came out careful, hesitant. She didn't want to scare her, but she needed to know why a child was sitting alone at a bus stop with nothing but a pink suitcase for company. Lily's feet stilled their restless swinging. She stared down at her mittens, fidgeting with the frayed ends of the yarn. For a long time, she didn't answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft, fragile, like a glass about to break. "My daddy left a long time ago," she said simply, as though she'd rehearsed it. "When I was little. I don't really remember him." Emily swallowed, her throat tightening. She shifted slightly on the bench, fighting the urge to wrap the girl in her arms right then and there. "And your mom?" she asked, more gently this time. Lily's hands stilled. She blinked quickly, her lashes glistening under the weak light. She died," she whispered. "Last year, she got sick and she couldn't get better. One day. She just didn't wake up." The words were spoken with a kind of matter of factness that only children forced to grow up too soon could manage. Still, Emily felt the impact like a stone dropping in her chest. She knew what it was like to lose everything that gave life meaning, to watch the world tilt and collapse. "I'm so sorry," Emily murmured, her own voice trembling. Lily shrugged again, but this time it was slower, heavier. "After that, I went to live with other people, foster care." She wrinkled her nose, the way some kids did when they tasted medicine. "The first family was okay, they tried. But then they moved, and I had to go somewhere else. The new place, it doesn't feel like home." Emily tilted her head, listening closely. There was more in Lily's voice, something unspoken, a layer of fear beneath the words. "They don't hurt you, do they?" she asked softly. Lily shook her head quickly. Not like that." She pulled her suitcase closer to her legs, hugging it as if it were a shield. They don't really want me. Not really. I'm just there." Her small voice cracked on the last word. Emily's chest ached. She had seen that look before, in the mirror. That quiet, desperate longing to belong somewhere, to matter to someone. "Is that why you're here?" Emily asked gently. "At this bus stop." Lily nodded, clutching the handle of her suitcase tighter. Her eyes lifted, shining with unshed tears, though her chin jutted forward in determination. "I just wanted to find someone who'd really want me. Someone who'd look at me and see me." The words pierced through the cold. She strayed into Emily's heart. She tried to steady her breathing, but her emotions rushed forward faster than she could contain them. How could a little girl, barely 6, carry such a burden? How could life be so cruel? Emily reached out slowly, giving Lily time to pull away if she wanted, and placed a trembling hand on her mittened fingers. The little girl didn't flinch. Instead, she let out a shaky breath, as though relieved that someone had finally touched her without pushing her away. "You're not invisible, Lily," Emily whispered. "I see you. And I hear you." For a moment, the girl's composure cracked. And she leaned against Emily's side, her small frame trembling. Emily froze, then wrapped her arm carefully around her, pulling her close. She hadn't held another human being in so long, hadn't felt the weight of someone trusting her enough to lean on. The night grew quieter, almost reverent. Even the wind seemed to soften, as if giving them space. Lily sniffled, rubbing at her nose with the back of her mitten. "I don't want another house," she murmured. "I want a home, and a mommy. Somebody who'll stay." Emily's eyes stung with tears she fought to hold back. She wanted to promise the little girl the world, but how could she? She didn't even have a bed of her own to sleep in. Yet, hearing those words, a spark ignited deep inside her chest. A spark of something she hadn't felt in so long. Hope. As the silence settled again, Emily realized this meeting wasn't an accident. They were both broken in different ways, but maybe, just maybe, they had found each other for a reason. The night dragged on, but neither Emily nor Lily seemed to notice the hours slipping by. The cold air gnawed at their skin. Yet there was something about the warmth of their quiet company that dulled the bite of winter. Emily leaned back against the bus stop bench, her eyes lifting toward the faded advertisement, taped to the plexiglass wall. It showed a happy family smiling at a dinner table, father, mother, children laughing together. She felt a pang in her chest. The glossy picture looked so ordinary, so simple, and yet for both her and Lily, it was a dream just out of reach. Beside her, Lily carefully unzipped her pink suitcase and pulled out a worn stuffed bunny. Its fur was matted, one ear hanging loosely by a few threads. She held it to her chest and gave Emily a shy smile. "This is Mr. Whiskers, he's been with me since I was a baby. He listens to all my secrets." Emily smiled faintly, the corners of her lips twitching upward despite the heaviness in her heart. "He looks like a good listener." "He is," Lily said with a solemn nod. Then, as if weighing a huge decision, she lifted the bunny and gently placed it in Emily's lap. "You can hold him, if you want." Emily blinked. Her throat tightened as her hands curled carefully around the stuffed toy. Its fabric was threadbare. But the gesture, Lily sharing the one constant comfort she had, felt heavier than gold. Emily stroked the bunny's worn fur, blinking hard against the sting of tears. "Thank you, Lily. That's really kind." Lily watched her for a long moment, then rested her cheek on Emily's arm, as though it were the most natural thing in the world. Emily stiffened at first, unaccustomed to touch. But then slowly relaxed, letting the warmth of the little girl sink into her. They sat like that for a while, both too tired to fill the silence. It wasn't an awkward silence. It was the kind that made Emily realize she wasn't truly alone anymore. Finally, Lily's soft voice broke the stillness. "Do you know what I used to pray for?" Emily turned to look at her. "What?" "A mommy who wouldn't go away." Lily's voice wavered, but her eyes shone with a stubborn kind of hope. "Not one who's sick, or one who moves me to another house. Someone who stays. Somebody who looks at me like I'm not too much or too little. Just enough." The words landed like a stone in Emily's chest. She stared down at Lily, speechless. For so long, Emily had been surviving on the edges of society, convinced she had nothing left to give anyone. Yet here was this little girl, clutching her arm like it was the most important anchor in the world. Before she could form a response, Lily lifted her head, her eyes glistening in the dim light. She reached for Emily's hand, wrapping her small mittened fingers around Emily's cold, calloused ones. Her grip was surprisingly firm for someone so small. "You need a home," Lily whispered, her words trembling but sure. "And I need a mommy. Maybe." She paused, as if searching Emily's face for permission. "Maybe we can fix each other." Emily's breath caught. It was such a simple sentence, spoken with childlike innocence. But it cracked her wide open. No one had ever asked her to be anything, to mean anything. In years. She had long ago stopped believing she could be anyone's safe place. Tears filled her eyes before she could stop them. She turned her face away, ashamed. But Lily tugged gently on her hand until Emily looked back at her. The little girl's gaze was steady, full of faith that Emily herself couldn't muster. "You don't have to be perfect," Lily said softly, echoing some wisdom that sounded far too grown up for her age. "You just have to stay." Emily pressed her free hand against her mouth, a choked sound escaping. All the walls she had built around her heart, brick by brick through loneliness, failure, and shame, crumbled under the weight of a child's simple truth. She squeezed Lily's hand tightly, her voice shaking. "I don't know if I can be what you need." Lugal, the girl leaned closer, resting her forehead against Emily's arm. "You already are," she whispered. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was full. Full of unspoken promises, of two broken hearts daring to believe that maybe, just maybe, they had found what they were missing. Above them, the street light flickered once more before finally holding steady, casting a soft golden glow over the unlikely pair. Emily glanced at Lily, still holding her hand, and for the first time in a long, long while, she felt something stir in her chest. Not fear, not despair, hope. The night stretched long, but somehow Emily and Lily stayed awake, side by side, as though afraid that if they closed their eyes, this fragile connection would disappear like a dream. The occasional roar of a bus passing by punctuated the silence, but neither girl nor woman moved to leave. At some point, Emily stopped shivering. Not because the cold had relented. It hadn't. But because Lily's little body was pressed against hers, radiating a warmth deeper than temperature. She found herself holding Lily's hand almost absent-mindedly. Like it was the only tether keeping her from drifting back into the numbness of loneliness. Then, slowly, the world began to shift. The horizon lightened, faint streaks of pink and orange stretching across the sky. The flickering streetlight above them sputtered one last time before giving up entirely, leaving the two bathed in the soft glow of dawn. Emily inhaled sharply. For the first time in months, she was awake to greet the sunrise, not because she had nowhere else to go, but because she wanted to see what the morning might bring. She turned to Lily. The little girl had her head resting against Emily's arm, her eyes closed but her grip on Emily's fingers still tight. She looked so small, so vulnerable, yet also so incredibly brave. Emily's heart clenched. How could life have abandoned her like this? The sound of footsteps crunched on the pavement, breaking Emily's thoughts. She stiffened instantly, instinctively clutching Lily closer. Out of the morning mist, a police officer emerged, tall and broad-shouldered. His dark uniform crisp even in the dim light. He looked tired but alert, scanning the bus stop with sharp eyes that softened when they landed on the unusual pair. "Good morning," he said, his voice calm but carrying authority. "What are you two doing out here?" Emily's throat went dry. Fear surged through her. She wasn't doing anything wrong. Yet she knew how things looked. A homeless woman sitting at a bus stop with a child who clearly wasn't hers. Lily stirred, blinking awake. When she saw the officer, she instantly straightened and grabbed Emily's arm tightly. "Police," she whispered, panic sparking in her eyes. The officer crouched down to Lily's level, his tone gentle. "Hi there, sweetheart. Are you okay? Where are your parents?" Lily's lower lip trembled. And instead of answering, she buried her face against Emily's side. Emily's pulse pounded in her ears. Every instinct screamed to protect this little girl, but what could she possibly do? She had no rights, no authority, no place in this child's life. The officer glanced at Emily, his expression cautious. "Ma'am, do you know this child?" Emily opened her mouth, but no words came. She could lie and say yes, but that would only make things worse. She could tell the truth, but they'd met just hours ago. But then Lily would be ripped away. Before she could respond, Lily's muffled voice came from against her jacket. "She's my mommy." Emily froze, her breath catching in her throat. The officer's eyebrows lifted, suspicion flickering across his face. "Your mommy," he repeated. Lily nodded fiercely, turning her tear-streaked face upward. "She's my mommy. She loves me." She wrapped both arms around Emily's waist like a lifeline. The officer hesitated. He was trained to see through lies, to cut through stories. Yet what he saw wasn't deceit, it was desperation. His gaze lingered on Emily, and she saw something flicker there, a mix of skepticism and pity. "Mom," he said carefully. "Child services will need to be involved. This little girl clearly needs a safe home. Are you willing to cooperate with them?" Emily felt her chest tighten. The word safe home hit her like a blow. She wanted so badly to say yes. But how could she? She had no job, no apartment, no stability. What could she possibly offer Lily, other than a pair of arms to hold her? Her silence stretched too long. Lily's grip tightened, her voice breaking. "Don't let them take me, Mommy. Please. Please don't let them." The plea shattered Emily. She cupped the little girl's face, tilting it upward. Her own eyes brimming with tears. "Sweetheart, Her voice cracked. "I don't know if they'll let me. But I choose you." Lily insisted, her tiny hands clutching Emily's coat. "I don't care about houses or toys or big beds. I just want you." Isn't Emily broke then? Completely. The dam inside her heart burst, flooding her with emotions she had tried to bury for so long. The shame of her failures, the ache of her loneliness, the yearning she tried to silence. Lily's words cut through all of it, reminding her of a truth she had forgotten. Love wasn't about having everything. It was about staying. Emily turned back to the officer, her voice shaking but resolute. "I don't have much. I don't even have a roof over my head. But I swear to you. I will do everything, to take care of her if you let me try. Please, just give me a chance." The officer studied her for a long moment. He saw the raw honesty in her eyes, the fierce protectiveness in the way she held Lily. Slowly. His posture shifted, softening. He sighed, pulling a phone from his pocket. "I'll call child services," he said. "They'll want to hear this. And I'll put in a word for you." They've got programs for women in your situation. Housing assistance, job placement. If you're serious, they might give you both a chance. Emily's knees almost buckled with relief. She held Lily tightly, whispering into her hair, "See, we're not done yet. We're going to try." Lily clung to her, sobbing but smiling at the same time. For the first time, she wasn't just a runaway, and Emily wasn't just a drifter. Together, they were something new. The sun broke fully over the horizon, bathing the bus stop in gold. And as the officer made his call, Emily realized something she hadn't dared to believe in years. The sunrise wasn't the end of another long empty night. It was the beginning of their story. The weeks that followed felt like a blur. Yet each moment carved itself into Emily's memory as though life was finally painting her days with color instead of gray. Child Services had stepped in, cautious but surprisingly supportive after the officer's report. There were endless questions, paperwork that seemed to stretch for miles, and interviews where Emily felt, as if every flaw in her soul was under a magnifying glass. But through it all, Lily never let go of her hand. Every time the officials asked Lily if she felt safe, the little girl would cling tighter to Emily's arm and answer firmly, "Yes. She's my mommy." That word, mommy, echoed through Emily's chest like a bell ringing in an empty cathedral, filling her with both fear and hope. It wasn't easy. Emily had to confront her past, her lost job, her eviction, her mistakes. But she also discovered something she hadn't expected: people willing to help. The housing support program placed her in a small, modest apartment on the edge of town. It wasn't grand. The carpet was worn, the paint a little chipped, but to Emily, it was more beautiful than any mansion. It was a place to belong. And now, after all the chaos and waiting, she stood outside that apartment with Lily's small hand tucked into hers. The door loomed before them, plain and brown, but Emily's heart pounded as though she were standing at the gates of a palace. She glanced down at Lily, who was hugging her whiskers tightly to her chest, her eyes wide with anticipation. "Are you ready?" Emily whispered. Lily nodded solemnly, then broke into a grin that lit up her whole face. "More than ready." Emily turned the key and pushed the door open. The apartment smelled faintly of fresh paint and lemon cleaner, a sign that it had been scrubbed for their arrival. The morning light streamed through the single window, landing on a small couch, a table with 2 chairs, and a pair of neatly folded blankets waiting for them. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. Lily stepped inside first, her sneakers squeaking on the clean linoleum floor. She wandered slowly, touching everything as though it were part of a magical kingdom. The light switch, the window latch, even the empty bookshelf in the corner. "This is ours?" she asked in awe. Emily swallowed hard, her eyes blurring. "Yes, sweetheart, ours." The word tasted like honey on her tongue. Lily ran back and grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the bedroom. It was small, barely enough for a bed and dresser, but in the corner sat a twin mattress with brand new sheets decorated with tiny stars. Emily hadn't known they would do that. Someone from the program must have arranged it. Lily gasped and rushed to it, bouncing lightly on the mattress before hugging her bunny. "A bed! My own bed!" she squealed. Emily leaned against the doorway, her arms folded tightly across her chest. For the first time in a long time, the tears that filled her eyes weren't from sorrow, but gratitude. She stepped inside and knelt beside the bed, brushing Lily's hair gently back from her face. "I don't know if I'll be perfect," she said softly, her voice shaking with the weight of truth. "I don't have all the answers. But I promise you this, Lily, I'll always try, I'll stay, I'll fight for us, every single day." Lily looked up at her, eyes shining. Without hesitation, she threw her arms around Emily's neck, nearly knocking her off balance. "That's all I ever wanted," she whispered fiercely. Emily hugged her back, closing her eyes. For years, she had believed she was broken beyond repair, unworthy of love, destined only to drift. But here, in this tiny bedroom with peeling wallpaper and secondhand furniture, she realized she had been wrong. Love didn't need perfection. Love only needed presence. They spent the afternoon unpacking the few belongings Lily had stuffed into her pink suitcase. A small stack of books went on the shelf, Mr. Whiskers took his place on the pillow. And Lily carefully lined up her mismatched socks in the dresser as though they were treasures. When night fell, Emily tucked Lily into her starry sheets. The little girl's eyelids drooped, but before she drifted off, she reached out and grabbed Emily's hand. "Good night, Mommy," she mumbled sleepily. Emily froze, her heart swelling so full she thought it might burst. Slowly, she bent down, kissed Lily's forehead, and whispered, "Good night, my sweet girl." When Lily's breathing evened out, Emily sat quietly in the small chair beside the bed, watching her sleep. She thought about the bus stop, the flickering streetlight. The way Lily had looked at her with such fierce hope. She thought about the officer's words, the uncertainty that still lay ahead. There would be struggles, yes. Job applications to fill, bills to pay. And the long process of proving she was stable enough to officially adopt Lily. But none of that frightened her anymore. Because for the first time in years, she wasn't fighting for herself alone. She was fighting for them. Emily leaned back, a tired but content smile spreading across her face. The world outside might still see her as a homeless woman who had nothing. But here, in this little apartment, she was something more. She was Mommy, and that was everything.